Hi, everybody. So we are here. This is very exciting. After end of a long day for me, I get to talk animation, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm here with my friend Durbania with Chris, and we started talking, and I don't even remember exactly what video on or what it was on, but that he hadn't seen any Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, we were talking about our top 5 movies of the year, and it came up that I hadn't seen any of
Oh.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Because we talked about when Marnie was there, and it was on Tom's list. That's right.
Yes.
Forgot.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember, but anyway. And so I was like, we should do a podcast on Studio Ghibli, and I can kind of help introduce you to this amazing
Yep.
studio and their amazing films. And so the one that I decided to start with that I think is a good beginning introduction to Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli is Kiki's Delivery Service. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And
Awesome.
do you want to introduce yourself for those who are...
Well, I'm Chris, a.k.a. Durban. Got my channel Durbania where I do movie reviews and things like that, and I've never done a movie from this studio before. So thank you, Rachel, for introducing me to this world.
Yes. So, yeah, you're in for a treat. I envy you.
Yes.
I actually still haven't seen every single one. There's about 4 or 5 that I still need to see, believe it or not.
Awesome.
But they're just great. So, all right. Well, so Kiki's Delivery Service, let's tell you we'll talk a little bit about it. It was released in 1989 in Japan. And then in, let's see here, 1998 in the U.S. What happened was in 1994, I believe it was, that Disney struck a deal with, or 97, excuse me, that well, right around that time, Disney struck a deal with Studio Ghibli to distribute their films. And they not only distributed them, they remastered them, they created English dubs for them. And they were very painstaking. These were not sort of sloppy English dubs like you might have seen in a movie like The Wildlife, for instance. No, these are very...
Yeah, this felt like there was real acting with it. So, yeah, it felt good.
Yeah. And so it's seamless. Like, you don't even know, even compared to the new distributor of the Studio Ghibli films is called G-Kids, and they do a great job, but you can even tell the difference between their quality of dub and the Disney. It's just not quite as good. It's not quite as good as the Disney dubs. So most of us were introduced to Kiki's Delivery Service around 1998, and the dub featured the talents of Kirsten Dunst, Phil Hartman, Tress MacNeille, Janine Garofalo, Matthew Lawrence, Brad Garrett, and a bunch of other people, which was fun. And it's a pretty simple story. I didn't do, I guess, my traditional sort of summary like I typically do. It's just basically... it's about a 13-year-old witch in training named Kiki who leaves her family to find out where she belongs. She ends up in a city called Koriko. There she meets a boy named Tombo who loves flying and designing contraptions. She also meets Ozono, a bakery owner who hires Kiki to be a delivery girl. Kiki has a pet cat that talks named Gigi, and one day she loses a black cat toy, so she delivers Gigi instead. Then she meets a painter named Ursula who fixes the toy, and the two become friends. Kiki becomes discouraged and starts to lose her ability to fly. Ursula tells her it's like artist block, but with magic. When Tombo gets in an accident, she regains her flying ability to save him and gets her magic back. So that's pretty much the story.
That's pretty much the whole story right there. Yeah.
So yeah, and I do have the chat room open, and we do already have a question. So that's awesome. It says, "Is Kiki
Nice.
your favorite Ghibli film?" No, it is not my favorite. I know it's sort of it's a little bit of a cliche. I feel like in amongst animation fandoms, you should have a more sophisticated answer. But my favorite is still Spirited Away. It's so different and creative, and I kind of feel like it's almost, to use the cliche, the Citizen Kane of animated films, because everything about it is creative and inventive and different, and it's just, I don't think I've ever seen a movie where I just had no idea what was coming up next at all, even a little bit. And so it's my favorite, but they're all great. If the person in the chat would say, what's your favorite? I'll say.
Well, this is my first experience, so right. I can't really comment other than on Kiki.
So this is your favorite as of the moment.
As of right now, this being the only one I've seen, it is my favorite. Yes.
Absolutely. So this does have some typical Miyazaki tropes, for lack of a better word. And Miyazaki, if you didn't know, Hayao Miyazaki is the name of the animator and director. He's one of the heads of Studio Ghibli, and he's considered a master animator. And he and this other director named Isao Takahata.
You're good at those pronunciations.
I don't know. That they are the I don't know, like the whatever you would consider, if there was like Hayao is the Walt Disney of Japanese animation, Studio Ghibli.
Nice.
And then like Isao Takahata is like an additional Walt Disney. Like they got two.
Oh wow.
They're both amazing, and they're both so different. And Takahata has a much more sketchy style. It looks much more literally like out of a sketchbook, and his films tend to be a lot more grown up, less for kids. So he has one called Grave of the Fireflies. It's about World War II, and he does have one that's called My Neighbors the Yamadas, which is kind of The Simpsons for Studio Ghibli.
Oh, nice!
It's really good, but for the most part, he even that one in a way kind of deals with sort of more adult themes in its own way. So, but anyway, our commenter Noki Buffalo says yes, Spirited Away definitely up there on the best animated films of all time. Yeah,
nice.
Definitely.
I guess I'll have to check that out next.
Yeah,
time.
We'll have to do one of that for sure. But it's kind of, because it is so different. I didn't feel like it was a good one to start with.
You got to do the gateway, right? Like the gateway into
So I felt like Kiki would be a better one to kind of start with, kind of dip your toe into the world of anime. But there are some tropes that Miyazaki likes to use a lot in his movies that you see in Kiki. And so I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about those sort of tropes and what you thought of them as a new kind of person to this world.
Sounds good to me.
One of the things that he tends to have is a talking cat or an animal. So I was curious, what did you think of Gigi and I guess Phil Hartman's vocals? What did you think of it?
Well, I could confidently say that cat was my favorite character.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't even tell you why, but Phil Hartman just did a great job voicing that cat. And I loved him. He's like that little naysayer. Wait a minute, Kiki, didn't you say we're going to leave in a month? And now you want to leave tonight? No, I think we should stick to the regular plan. And then she sends him out on the broom to change the radio, and they're so so high up and all that. And honestly, it was a real tragedy to me when he started meowing and she couldn't understand him. Like I was like crushed. I was like, no, I don't care if you can't even ever fly again. Just tell me you can understand Gigi. Are you kidding me? So that was so tragic. And the whole him pretending to be the toy, and then that dog, like the whole thing with the dog carrying him around in his mouth and stuff like that was just awesome.
Yeah, whenever I hear Phil Hartman, even when I watch The Simpsons, I just, a part of me just hurts inside just because
I
it's
know.
so sad what happened with him. But absolutely, I agree. I mean, Gigi is definitely one of the best and characters in the film, and it actually is interesting because it's slightly different in the dub versus the original version. He talks a lot more.
Oh, really?
Yes, they have the way that they're able. I don't know how they do it, but somehow they are able to do it. And I think because they had Phil Hartman, they just made him a little bit. It's just a little bit different. And it's interesting because I've been to Japan, and one of the things that I really noticed about Japan was that almost everything was either really beautiful or really cute. Like you would get, like, if you went to go get cookies, they were either like beautifully packaged, like gorgeous cookies, or they were like really uber cute.
Yeah.
And
I've never been, so I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, and kind of Hello Kitty kind of thing.
Nice.
Anyway, and I don't know, I sort of feel like that they kind of, like in the original, I think he's sort of cuter, not as sarcastic, not as, but I prefer actually this version, and just because I love Phil Hartman so much.
Yeah, I really like Phil Hartman too. It's one of those things, I was watching it, and I forgot just like how much I miss Phil Hartman. But as I'm watching, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy had so much talent.
Yeah, it's really such a shame. He's like I said, in The Simpsons, he is just master.
Oh yeah, I thought of The Simpsons so many times while I was listening to his voice, and yeah.
And there's just something so sweet about Kiki, having her little friend, because she's sort of all alone, and it's really nice because sometimes those side characters in Disney films can be kind of cloying and annoying, but you never feel that way.
I thought he was great the whole way through, and he got his little cat girlfriend. That was cool. And the last shot, we see the little kittens they had together, and it's like, oh, he had a great life. But we still ended it, and he was meowing and not talking.
Yeah.
That I was upset with. I was like, no, and she can fly. She can hear him talk. Let me hear him talk one more time. I was really sad she couldn't hear him talk.
I know, me too. That's a good point. Yeah, it is. It's just like, darn, growing up. Christopher Robin has to leave the 100-acre woods, and Kiki can't hear cat.
It's tragic. It's tragic. And that was I love that cat. I had a black cat. His name was Ted. So I guess maybe that's where, his name was Ted. He got hit by a car. But when in his alive days, he was a great cat. And so maybe that's where I connected.
Yeah. I guess I should have asked you, like, what were sort of your overall, like, base kind of, I should have asked you before we dived into this, your base, like, thoughts of the movie. Did you like it, not like it?
Well, honestly, I went into it, I had no idea if I was going to like this or not like it. And to be honest, part of me was leaning towards not liking it. But when I was watching it, I did enjoy it. I mean, the story is really simple, really basic. There's not a ton of conflicts that really drive the story. So it is definitely very character driven. But I found myself surprised by how much these characters pulled me in. Mm-hmm. And, there's even a few places where I felt it was a little slow and I was like, okay, something needs to happen. But beyond that, like, I enjoyed those characters enough that when it was over, I found I was surprised by how much I did end up enjoying it.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I actually agree. I think that it is sort of a slice of life, kind of thing. There isn't a whole lot of conflict. There isn't it's just sort of spending time. It's kind of like a Richard Linklater film. Yeah. But it's just like, if you like these characters and you like spending time with them, then then this is a particular kind of movie that you can enjoy. And
it was a very interesting world that this took place in too, where everybody just knows witches exist, and at the age of 13, they just go away in training and leave their families for a year. And so, like, and it was just interesting that it didn't give you too much backstory about any of that. No. It just dropped you right in, like, no, this is life. Like, this is how things work.
Yeah. Well, it's and there's really no, like, villain. I think that if it was made by, say, DreamWorks or something like that, there would be some, like, evil witch trying to stop her or something like that. No. Yeah. There's just, like, Yeah. It's just like life, you know?
Yeah, it was. And it was kind of interesting. And there were points where that was really interesting. There were points where that was really slow for me. But like I said, it was the characters. Like Kiki was a very cool character. I forget the names of the bakery people she stayed with, but they were really cool. I liked her friend in the woods and the cat. You know, all of it together. So yeah.
I mean, and it is kind of interesting when you think that was made in 1989. I don't know how many other sort of slices of life from 1989 would really hold up even as well as it does. You know, that's pretty. It was released the same year as Little Mermaid, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. And which is my favorite, one of my favorite. Yeah. So one of the other tropes that Miyazaki uses in most of his movies is a young independent girl growing up. Pretty much all of his movies are about young girls.
Yes.
And with a lead heroine, I guess you might say. And so I guess we can talk about, what did you think of Kiki as a character? And maybe I'll start, because if I had seen this movie back when I saw Little Mermaid, I would have loved this movie, because I really loved anything that was about kids being taken sort of seriously and being taken. I loved Home Alone because Home Alone was about, you know, him going to the grocery store and you know, because the slapstick antics part of it is actually only about 15 minutes. It's not as long as you think.
Just the end. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the end. I mean, he just does so much on his own. He does such a good job. And that to me was like my dream. I would have loved something where, because I didn't like I was a pretty independent kid. And if the whole idea that she goes off at 13 and figures that would have been like a fantasy for me that I would have loved. Yeah. And we got some great comments in the chat room. It says that the trope of the young heroine is super true. My mind was just blown. There you go. So yeah, I would have just eaten that up with Kiki, and just like one of my favorite scenes, like I said, in Home Alone is when he steals the toothbrush and then he's like walking back and he's like, "I'm a thief," you know, and like.
Yes. Oh man.
And so that's the kind of thing that I really responded to as a girl. And, you know, that's part of why I loved Ariel so much, is she was independent. She was, you know, that, so I don't know. So I would have really, cause some of his other young heroines are a little more whiny, a little more complaining.
Okay.
Definitely.
I don't do well with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely in Spirited Away. She starts out, you know, kind of a little more whiny. Whereas Kiki, she's very positive. She's very, you know, happy. And then she kind of loses her mojo.
Yes, she does. Yeah.
And it's really hard for her, and she doesn't know how to deal with it. And so it's really cool to kind of see her go on that kind of journey. What did you think of Kiki?
I thought she was a really cool character. I think the thing that really sold me on it is what you said. She wasn't whiny. You know, she was strong, she was independent, but she didn't feel entitled. You know, she didn't have that entitlement mentality, but she just had that confidence and that excitement to get out on her own. And when she got out there, I mean, she carried everything well. Like, you know, I just thought that was cool, watching her trying to find a place to stay. Mm-hmm. You know, we got to see her be worried about where to find a place to stay, and then she, you know, stumbled upon it and gets to stay at the bakery, and then gets a job with the bakery. And I don't know, it's just kind of cool to watch her handle those challenges as they came. So I did enjoy that. I thought she was a really, really cool character.
Yeah.
I think
it's cool too, because they don't really give you sort of the rules of the witch world that she's living in. So you don't know, like, you don't know kind of what it is that she has to do to kind of make it better, you know, so that, you know, and she doesn't know, I don't think.
Yeah, no.
And so that leaves you just sort of rooting for her.
Yeah, because like, she's finding it on her own, finding the rules, finding how to find her spirit and all that stuff. So if we compare this with book 5 of Harry Potter, that was probably the hardest book I've ever read. And I probably would have stopped if I wasn't dating my wife at the time, but it was her copy. And she's like, she loves Harry Potter, so she made me read it. 800 pages of Harry Potter whining made me just want to hit something.
Yeah.
I was so excited about the movie that they cut so much of that out, but reading 800 pages of Harry just whining, it was like, I can't stand it. So it was refreshing to watch Kiki.
Yeah.
And she's not a whiner. Yeah, she hit those hard times and had those difficult questions and things like that, like when she lost her power and was trying to find her muse. But she didn't really complain. Like you said, she had a good upbeat attitude about it, and it was cool to kind of watch her grow up a little bit.
Yeah. And one of the other tropes, I guess, with Miyazaki's films or Studio Ghibli, honestly, in general, is an honest discussion of depression. And that's one thing I really like in this, you know, that she talks, kind of compares it to, she gets in this depression and you know, she doesn't really feel good about the way she looks in her dress. She doesn't really feel good about herself. And then, you know, she has that discussion with Ursula about sort of artist block, and is she having magic block, and how did she sort of get rid of this block, this depression, this thing. And I don't know, how did you think that was kind of handled?
I enjoyed it. Yeah. Because I think all of us hit that point in our identity where we have that block, you know, where we're really trying to figure out what makes us come alive, what really makes us tick. And it's kind of like what she said, she loves flying, so that's why she did that delivery service. But then she didn't like flying as much because now she wasn't doing it for fun, she was doing it for work. Been there.
Yeah.
Done that. Like, I've had those things that are passions, but then when you're doing them for work, it's like, oh, okay, that kind of sucks the joy out of it. And so that's actually the angle I felt like she was at, but I related with it. I understood what she was going through. I was like, yeah, I've been there. I've had those feelings that she's having, and I like that the way the movie honestly dealt with it. It's not like those feelings just went away. Like, she didn't like how she looked in her dress. Somebody would say, no, you look great. She would have confidence for 3 days, and then before you know it, she's looking at another dress. And, you know, that's human nature. Like, I feel like none of us really ever grows out of that. So, yeah.
True. There's not sort of like simple solutions of, you know, here's the boy, here's a, you know, whatever it might be, here's some food, here's some, whatever the solution might be. And I really like Miyazaki said, they asked him about, like, why does everyone accept witchcraft in this movie like so easily? And I really love his quote. He says, "The witchcraft has always merely been the means to fulfill the dreams of young girls. They have always become idols with no difficulties. In contrast, Kiki cannot use her powers as a means of wish fulfillment." Which is really interesting, I think.
Yeah, that's a good quote. Yeah. Kind of adds another layer on top of what I already know about it, having watched it. That's really cool.
Yeah. That, you know, that really this is, for lack of a better, her witchcraft in this thing is, for lack of a better, was almost like a priesthood kind of a thing, like you'd have in you know, ancient scripture, that it's something that you can't really use except for to bless other people. You know, it's a gift that is really just, that's why when she is, you know, trying to save Tombo, that's when she gets her gift kind of back again. That it's not something that is, like you said, wish fulfillment. It's not something that, you know, will make her princess or make her a, you know, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I've worked in ministry quite a bit of my life, so I understand what that's like when, you know, sometimes it feels like your well is running dry because other people are coming to you for those encouraging words, and they're coming to you for this, that, or the other. And sometimes it just feels like there's that point where it's like, well, who do I get to go to?
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Like the well kind of running dry. And I think that's sort of what happens with her, with the, you know, because she's kind of growing up. Plus she's, you know, just having sort of these insecurities and these other things. And it just, that magic well kind of runs dry. And, yeah. So, okay. Let's see here. Sorry. Okay. So the next kind of trope that you have in Miyazaki's films is they usually have a European city of some kind. And So in this case, it's actually called, it's called, what's it called? Corico, but it definitely has the look and feel of sort of a European city.
Yeah.
I think of it, particularly Miyazaki loves Italy. He has a love for Italy. I'm not sure why.
That feel. Yeah.
But he tends to Poco Rosso is one of his in The Wind Rises has a heavy it's all about it's about this airplane designer, and his big hero in life is an Italian airplane designer, and that you see in these fantasy sequences. And so so anyway, what did you think of the setting, of the animation, of all of that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, I did like the animation. And I thought that was cool, for 1989 and things like that. Like, it was really cool looking. And I did like the city. Like, I live near the coast. And so, seeing this cool little, like, coastal city and things like that, it's like, I love that vibe. And so I thought that was cool, them living right by the water and things like that. I don't know. I like the city. It was cool looking.
Yeah, and I liked the way that you could, when you're moving with Kiki, and just the flow of it all felt really good, and just all the little details of like when she'd go under a bridge and there would be sort of the car crashes, and how like perilous it often was.
Yes. Oh yeah, when she first entered the city and caused that huge traffic jam, and just and then the cop almost getting her trouble, but Tombo saves her. Like, those were some really great moments. And and every time she was flying, like when she went on that first delivery right before she lost the toy because all those crows were attacking her, like it made me want to fly. Like I wanted to be like on a broomstick or something and up there in the clouds. It's like, oh my gosh, how fun would that be to be whipping through clouds, the wind through my hair.
Yeah, because that's actually the last trope that I had, is that he loves flight. Focus on flight, and pretty much all of his movies have flight. And one of the things they do that's so amazing is the sound design in the Studio Ghibli film. I'm not somebody who typically notices Studio Ghibli film, who typically notices sound design, but in this, when they whoosh, when they, in others, you can just hear the propellers, you can hear and just anything like that. Like if you're in water, it just sounds like, it just sounds like water, and when she's falling, it just gives everything a sense of like gravitas that I don't think it would have otherwise. Yeah,
I can agree with that. Yeah, I didn't notice it while I was watching, but I guess that's good because that means they did it right, and I was just kind of in it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is like the ultimate contrast, but I saw 9 Lives, and the cat sounded so bad. I mean, it was just phenomenal. And
isn't that Kevin Spacey movie?
Yeah, and like every time the cat would meow, it would take me out of the movie, and that's a big problem if your movie about a cat has bad meowing. And so like here's the opposite, where it just like immerses you in the experience, and you really feel like you're there flying with Kiki, and you're there with her, with Gigi, you're there with all the different things, because it's just so lush.
Yeah, no, they did a really good job with that, and thank you for confirming again why I have not gone to see that Kevin Spacey cat movie.
It does have some so bad it's good qualities. Like if you want to kind
like Sharknado, it's so bad it's good. Yeah.
Oh, I could even the other. I just say real quick. The other crazy thing about that movie is that he's like a good dad. Like he's actually good, and so.
So why does he get turned into a cat?
I don't know. It's bizarre. It's just Christopher Walken like being bizarre. Who knows? But anyway, it's like he goes out of his way and has a whole board meeting just to figure out the birthday present for his daughter. Like he's not a bad dad.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. Yeah.
It's so bizarre. Anyway, you kind of have to see it just to see like this really happened. This is real. This is so bizarre. But anyway, so what did you think of Tombo as a side character?
It's funny because in the beginning, I was kind of annoyed by him. But I was also annoyed that Kiki was being so snobbish towards him. It was weird. Like, I had those mixed feelings. Like, I thought he was just annoying, and I thought Kiki being snobby was just so unfair. But like the more he kept showing up, I was like, oh, he's a cool kid. And it's one of those things that's kind of predictable. I knew he liked her. I knew at the very least they'd end up as friends. When she lost her powers, I kind of went, something bad is going to happen. Her inspiration will be to save him, and that's how she'll get her flight back. But I did end up really liking him, and I thought he was cool. It took me some time, but he grew on me. Mm-hmm. Probably what the movie wanted, because that's what happened with Kiki. She didn't like him, and he grew on her.
Yeah. Well, I think too, just sort of him and that weird flying thing that he has a sort of fun.
Yeah.
And I also like, it's the catalyst for getting Kiki to kind of her low spot, is that his friends, and she feels like out of place with his friends, and so she's just kind of walks home and she's all sad, and so she's just kind of depressed, and that's where it also sort of starts. And he's definitely a little overeager. He can be a little annoying. I'll definitely agree with you there. But
the sad thing is I couldn't get too mad at him, because when I was about 13, 14, I had 30 times the energy I have now, and I cannot imagine how annoying I was to people back then. So there's this like part of me is like, don't be a hypocrite, Durbin. Just back off. Just back off.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, like he's kind of he's probably a good character for little boys. Like you got Kiki for the little girls, you got Tombo for the little boys, so they can kind of enjoy that. But yeah, he certainly can hold on, for a long time. I mean that.
Oh yeah.
What did you think?
I was thinking about that horrible rope burn when he was sliding down that rope. I was like, oh my gosh, it must have been the adrenaline of the heights that kept him holding on.
Yeah.
Because that rope burn, man, I would have been crying.
Yeah, for sure. And what did you think of that whole sort of action scene, for lack of a better word, sort of the ending? Did you set? It was so predictable. Not predictable that it was going to be the blimp, but predictable that he was going to be in some peril, because it was going to be the thing that gives her the, I don't know. Yeah, that's fair.
To go. But, it wasn't done bad. Like, even though I figured that was what was going to happen, it was still enjoyable. Like, it didn't take me out of it.
Yeah. And I do think, not that it was new in 1989, but I do think I always have to remind myself when watching any Miyazaki film that, like, 1989, there was just so few animated films in the 80s. Like, the 80s was just, like, people don't understand. Like, here in 2016, we've had a major studio animated film almost every single month. Next month we have 2 in 1 month. We have Trolls and Moana in 1 month. And
Moana's the only one I want to see out of those two.
Yeah. Don't even get started on 2017. Oh my gosh. But, in 1984, there wasn't a single studio, or like even like a smaller, like a G.I. Joe or Care Bears, or nothing. There was not a single animated film released in the United States in 1984. Can you imagine that?
Wow. No, I actually can't. I was 1, so I have no memory of that whatsoever. But yeah.
1987, there was just 3.
What were they?
G.I. Joe, there was Care Bears, and there was the Brave Little Toaster.
I saw all of those. I think Brave Little Toaster was my favorite.
Yeah, it's really good. But it's just hard to imagine. And so, like, a lot of the things that you get in Miyazaki, you just kind of have to remember that it was just a different kind of era of animation a little bit. And a lot of the things that have been, that have been kind of copied and reapplied and redone in different ways. So
I liked the animation. So, like, I was from that standpoint, I was enjoying it. And when I saw it said 1989 and the copyright thing, I was like, oh, wow. So, I don't know. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. We did get a new comment. Brandon Cooper says, hello, Rachel. I think Kiki's Delivery Service was a really good anime movie. It's surprisingly for me, the only Studio Ghibli film I both own and watched. And, it's interesting because it is so simple, but in a way, I feel like it's one of his most rewatchable movies. It's one I can understand being the one that you have on Blu-ray, because His other movies are visually spectacular, but they can be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Because there's, just trust me on it, because there's just so
Yeah.
much to kind of take in and absorb. And this you can just kind of enjoy. You can have it on almost as background. You could watch and just kind of, it's just not as sort of intimidating. This and Totoro, I think, are his two most rewatchable movies. And they're definitely the ones that are made for children with, kind of with that idea in mind, especially Totoro, even more than this. But it's a complete delight. But yeah. So I actually completely understand why that would be the one that you would own on DVD.
Yeah.
So, okay. Actually, I'm almost at my last question is just, what do you think of the music? There's the composer, his name is Joe Hisashi, and they're kind of the great three, the Studio Ghibli, great three, I guess. I don't know what you call them, but is Takahata, Miyazaki, and Joe Hisashi, and they just, I think, just do amazing work together. And I think it's actually a kind of a crime that he has never been nominated. He's never been nominated for Best Score and in the Academy, because he just, I think, is tremendous composer.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. None of the scores coming to my mind right now, but I mean, like when I was watching it, there's nothing so bad and out of place that it caught my attention and took me out. So everything that I heard, it just felt like it flowed, So I'd have to say it's pretty good. And I think the only one I really remember is the song in Japanese in the end credits when, Tombo was flying his cool little plane and, yeah, I don't know. I liked it. Yeah. So I have nothing negative to say about the music.
Wait, it doesn't. I mean, but that says a lot, though, because I think a lot of other scores from the 80s, even I was watching Land Before Time.
I haven't seen that.
It's a little cheesy. It's like a little, it's a good movie, don't get me wrong, but it just feels a little cloying, I think. And and so I think that says something that it felt seamless. It still felt.
Yeah,
it didn't feel outdated.
I don't feel like I heard anything that made me scream, "Oh, that's the '80s." Like I don't feel like I heard anything that dated it or anything like that. So, I guess that's my comment on the music. Like I heard nothing that took me out, and there it is.
Yeah, that sounds good. So that was basically my questions. I mean, I guess. There's different relationships that Kiki has within the film. Her and Ursula, her and Osono the bakery owner, her and Tombo. And I don't know, how did you think? Did any of those stand out to you?
I liked what was the bakery lady's name?
Osono, I think. I may be pronouncing that wrong.
Yeah, I liked her a lot.
Yeah.
Like she's a really cool character, and so I don't know. I just liked her big personality, and that dude that worked with her who was really silent, never really said anything, that the cat seemed to really like to hang around. Like, he was a cool dude too. So, like, I don't know. I really liked them. And I thought she was a really good mentor. And Ursula was the one in the woods, right?
Yeah, she's the artist.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was a cool character. I thought it was funny how they met. And so I just thought that worked out really well. So, and I like that, she took the time to come to the city to find Kiki. And then when Kiki was all depressed, she took the time to bring Kiki back to her place to, do her best to take her mind off bad things.
Well, and none of these adults are patronizing at all.
None. They were friends.
Yeah.
One was a mentor and the other was a friend. And I really liked that.
And, one of the things that I fault Disney on, actually, is that almost none of their movies are about children.
Yeah.
Most of them are about young adults just about to get married, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like something like this is so refreshing, just to have a young girl who's, has relationships with adults, has relationships with kids her age, struggles with some of those relationships, grows, learns, all of that stuff is something you just don't get in that many animated films.
You really don't. It reminds me of what C.S. Lewis did with the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Throughout all of these books, you have these kids that go on these amazing adventures, but all the talking animals and even the adults in Narnia, they don't talk down. Even the villains don't talk down to the kids. Like, the villains treat the kids like real threats. And so, I'm with you on that. I don't like the patronizing thing, and I love those relatable pull you in kind of stories.
Yeah, I hate it when there's sort of the impression that, oh, it's for kids, then we're allowed to be stupid. And you never feel that way about Studio Ghibli. You never feel that way about Miyazaki. You know that he always respects his characters and there's an affection for his characters that I feel like you really get. And he allows them to go to a dark place. He allows them to be sad. He allows them, you know, like a human being. I mean, we treat kids, you know, sometimes I feel like, you know, kids aren't allowed to be mad. They're not allowed to be angry. They're not allowed to be sad.
It's true.
You know, like
yeah.
And he does, and he I don't know. He's just a master, kind of at what he does, and yeah. I mean, Kiki's Delivery Service. I would probably give it a solid B plus. Like for me, it's not an A, but it's, I think, very enjoyable. I very much like it, and I do think it's a good starting ground for your diving into the world of Studio Ghibli. So
I think it was a good jumping off point too. Yeah. Yeah,
good.
I think I'd give it.
You enjoyed it.
I think I'd give it a B. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not in a huge hurry to watch it again, but at no point was I bored while I was watching it, or you know, anything like that. Like I did enjoy it. I had a lot of fun with it, and you know, so yeah.
That's good. That's all you can really ask. And so yeah, we will have to take on another Studio Ghibli film one of these days.
Yes. Sounds like fun.
Because I really enjoyed rewatching this one. I hadn't seen it in quite a while, so it was a lot of fun. And so where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube. My channel is called Durbania, and so you could search that on YouTube, find it there. You can also find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Durbania, or on Twitter @World of Durbania.
Awesome. So I will have all of that in the description section, and definitely follow his channel. And you can follow me at Smiling LDS Girl on all social media, and at Rachel's Reviews on YouTube. And so that'll be great. So thanks so much again.
Awesome.
And we'll look forward to doing it again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.